Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the Roker Report podcast in association with the Sunderland Community Soup Kitchen. It's Gav back after Sunderland's 3-2 defeat in the FA Cup against Fulham, and we're also going to talk a little bit about this weekend's game against Reading. Joining us is Chris. Hiya mate.
Good evening, Gavin. How are you?
I am alright actually. If you'd asked us sort of 55, 60 minutes into yesterday's game, if I was all right, I was a little bit frustrated, but I think it's safe to say, isn't it, that we sit here now, having lost the game, pretty content with how we actually fared in the end. I mean, obviously there's loads to pick at. You caveat most of that with the fact we were playing against a Premier League team with Premier League players like, Alexander Mitrovic and Andreas Pereira coming off the bench. I mean, if we had those riches, I'm sure we would have won the game. But yeah, we lost 3-2. I only just got a chance before we recorded to bring the stats up, and I didn't realise that we shaded everything. We had more shots on target, more possession, more passes, better pass accuracy. We actually, probably over the statistical side of things, we did our fair share. We were the better team, so could probably count ourselves a little bit unlucky in some ways to have maybe lost. But I think Fulham's quality in the end, Sean, they are a Premier League team. They've got very good Premier League players. And that was ultimately the difference. I think, our defending wasn't great for their goals and they go through to the next round. But we did all right, didn't we, I think?
Yeah, I think we held our own, but I think the stats... and it's funny because just before we came on, I did exactly the same to you. And I was kind of thinking, I was double-checking I had the right game and all sorts. Because actually, you wouldn't have thought that we had more possession, more shots and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, I mean, I think they're slightly misleading in the way that the game went because... I mean, I think we all have to hold our hands up and say, look, we gave a good account of ourselves, but Fulham were the better side, like you summed it up.
Yeah.
They've got class throughout that team, and Kenny in midfield kind of ran the show, and I think
he's mint, by the way. If there's one player who I'd love to play for us who isn't under the age of 23, it's him. He's lush to watch. Like even the first game, he doesn't get a game for them though, does he? I don't think. I think he's like a backup player. So. There
was a stat. The commentator gave a stat last night saying he's come off of the bench like 20 times this season or 21 times this season or something like that.
Players ahead of him must be quality then, because he was awesome.
Yeah, and I mean, if you look at that sort of, I mean, I'm surprised someone didn't try and snap him up in January or something like that to take.
He's been there a while,
and
I think he's had about 7 or 8 years there, so he's a bit of a fixture and fittings, doesn't he? I think the last time they were in the Premier League, it was similar. He seems to always be a regular in the team when they're in the Championship, and then when they make the step up, he's there or thereabouts. He's not really part of the starting plans, but I mean, against us, we're a Championship team. He was brilliant.
Yeah, he was. And actually, I mean, going off the game, like I said, stats were slightly misleading. I thought, we all hold our hands up and say, if you go across the whole of the game, Fulham were the better side. They were more slick. They were better. I think we were better in patches. I think when we turned it on, we were fantastic and we looked brilliant. But I think across the game, Fulham were just solid and passed it about, especially first half. They kept the ball really well. And I think it was a good test for us. I think the 2 games have been really good. And considering, and we'll probably mention about 5-10 times how young our squad is now, how young our team is. But I think those 2 games are a fantastic learning curve for them. We did a pod before the first game at Craven Cottage, and I was saying then how I thought that game would go, and I thought that we'd give a good account of ourselves, but Fulham would just be too strong and it'd be a fairly routine win. And I imagined the game that we saw last night at Craven Cottage. So It actually shows how good we were at Craven Cottage, considering how good Fulham were last night, and they won.
Yeah, and I think physically as well, they were really good. Fulham, I think that was certainly in the first sort of 55, 60 minutes of the game, we just couldn't compete physically. Kenny was one of them. Kenny battered Dan Neil, I felt, for a big portion of that game physically. But it wasn't just him. I think it was Vinicius up front. He had a good game. He held it up well. And it was one of those where we just physically weren't in their league at times. But, I mean, you mentioned it before, the way we turned it on later in the game. When we turned it on and when we had the ball and we moved it around and we did what we are good at, they couldn't live with us. And this is a really good Premier League team. They couldn't live with us. There was a couple of moments where it was sort of the link up between Roberts, who I actually think had a pretty poor game overall, but he got better as the game grew on until he went off. But some of the link up between Roberts and Ahmad, they couldn't live with them down that right-hand side. When you went over the other side of the pitch, you then had Jack Clarke, who once he realised he could get into the game by not doing a million step overs and drag backs and sort of hanging on the ball too long. He was really effective and he scored an outstanding goal. And then it started to roll from there, and the football was brilliant. We played some really, really good stuff in that second half, which was, of Premier League standard, I would say. And we showed that collectively as a team, even without a striker on the pitch, we are a huge threat at the other end of the pitch, and brought on Jewison Bennett, and that was a different type of goal, wasn't it? Because it was a long ball. Danny Bart was actually up the pitch. He won the header to knock it down. Their defenders got all his feet wrong and slips a little bit, and Jewi, to his credit, sticks in the top corner. So we actually saw a different side to us there. And I guess actually, sort of a more rounded point, even at Millwall, the Serkin header was a Route 1 sort of, very effective set-piece goal. We aren't just doing the nice stuff. I know Tony Mowbray has said he would like to see us just put our foot through it a bit more. And you've talked about this a lot recently as well, where sometimes you think we're guilty of overplaying it and we just need to, just stick our foot through it and try and get a shot away. And that is definitely a feature of our play. And I felt like there was a little bit of that in this game against Fulham, and where I felt like, especially in that period when we were totally on top, we could have probably got another couple of goals. We just done a little bit too much with the ball. But generally speaking, I thought our play was good. And like I say, that's against a bunch of Premier League players, and there was moments there where they couldn't live with us.
Yeah, let's get Danny Bart up front for the
just someone to win the headers. Yeah.
Just launch it up to him. I mean, that Roberts and Ahmad and Clarke. I mean, considering what a time they gave them at Craven Cottage, you could see straight off that Silva had put a plan together for them. Every time Roberts and Ahmad got the ball, they were on them. And I'd probably say for the most of the first half, let's say 35 minutes, the first 35 minutes, they just couldn't get a kick. Every time they got the ball, they were just closing them, doubling up. Clarke on the other side as well. He had a couple of breaks early on, but never really made much of them. But especially on right-hand side, they were just, Roberts and Ahmad just had no time. Roberts was getting really frustrated because the ref was giving nothing to them every time they got kicked. There was a lot of free kicks that should have been given against Roberts and Ahmad, because basically they set out their stall at the beginning of that game to rough up Roberts and Ahmad and just say they've got no time on the ball. If they get past you, give them a kick. They're not getting past you. And the referee was giving us nothing every time Roberts was getting kicked off the pitch and all that sort of stuff. So they had a plan for those two. And I mean, in terms of the physicality of the game, you could see that it was actually part of Fulham's game plan to kind of rough us up, not just Roberts and Ahmad, but like you say, Neil and Mishu. I think they were taken aback a little bit at the beginning of the game, just how much Fulham stepped on them and just went into them, just smashed them. I think it taught us a bit of a lesson that Neil and Mishu are great footballers. And in the Championship, certainly recently, over recent games, they've started to mix it up and they're getting better as the season goes on. But I think Fulham just showed what level we're at in terms of that bite in midfield. And I know we've got options to bring in. I know Ekwa could come in to give us that bit more bite into the middle in games that we need it. But it just shows, how much Neil and Mishu have got to learn. I mean, but the thing is, you've got to remember, Neil's only 21, playing first time at this level. Mishu's 19, playing his probably his first full season where he's got a lot of games at a level like this where he's getting kicked every 2 minutes. So it's, I said earlier on, fantastic learning curve, and it's only going to help us for what's left of this season. Yeah,
and I actually think that's the reason he picked the team he did. I think he's looked at it as a really good opportunity for the young players to get some good experience against a Premier League team. It would have been very easy to pick Pritchard and put him into the team, and also maybe start Luke O'Nien, because they're probably the two most experienced players there. They both were on the bench. Instead, he went with Barr. He went with Mishu. He gave the young players the minutes, because ultimately he's probably looked at it and thought, we're not really going to be fancied in this game. Of course we want to win it, but how can we maximise this opportunity? How can we take advantage of the fact we're playing a good Premier League team and give players who need that experience against top players the best chance to, I guess, come away from this and have something to reflect upon? You don't really learn for anything from starting Alex Pritchard or Luke O'Nien in this particular game. It's a very unique situation, isn't it, where you sort of look at it and you think, actually, we would probably benefit from giving Mishu, Barr, Ahmad well, he would always start, but those types of players, the opportunity against a Prem team.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right, because actually at half time I did wonder whether he'd bring O'Nien on for a bit of bite, but he left it a little bit longer just to give Neil and Mishu a bit more time to try and get into the game. And yeah, you're absolutely right. The other thing I was thinking was during the game is I don't think Tony Mowbray gave Neil and Mishu that much of a chance, actually, because the way we set up, almost it looked, when we were out of possession, it looked like a 4-4-2 with kind of how far forward Ahmad was, and Bar was almost playing as
was right up there, wasn't he?
Yeah. Bar was playing as an out-and-out striker, and I thought almost the better thing to do would have been to drop Bar in when we're out of possession as that third central midfielder, and keep Ahmad as that point person up front and get it into his feet and try and kind of play from there. But Bar was right up he was almost basically in the Ross Stewart position. He was that far forward, which meant, because Ahmad was pulling across to the right-hand side to play with Patrick Roberts, Bar was isolated up front, and that meant Neil and Mishu had absolutely zero protection, and that, it was just them two against their three midfielders, and at times, especially in that first half, they just couldn't cope with it.
Yeah, and I thought about this a little bit, and I was wondering what was the thinking behind maybe playing Bar that far forward. And I think what it probably was is he's one of the players who can carry the ball at pace quickly. He wasn't up there because he's going to score your goals. It's because we were expecting Fulham to come and dominate the ball, and we needed people who, when we do get the ball, get forward very quick. I presume that's why Bar did that. And to be honest, if that's the thinking behind it, I get it. I know that this is going to be a feature of pretty much every discussion about Sunderland as the season kicks on. But we don't or have a plethora of striking options, and we are actually approaching this from a different angle, as in, how can we still carry a goal threat? How can we still be a threat in games without a traditional centre forward on the pitch at all times? And I actually think we've, through a lot of trial and error, I guess, because we've played a lot of football without strikers this season, we know how to play that way. You saw it in this game. I know in the first half we looked like a team who needed a striker on the pitch. We had nobody up there. But second half, as the game sort of changed, the flow of it changed, we then saw the other side of it, which is when Roberts, Ahmad and Clarke in particular are in full flow, it's almost like having three forwards on the pitch, and they all carry a threat. It's just a case of, can they get the goals? And that's the challenge now going forward, is can Patrick Roberts start adding goals and assists to his game? Because for as good as he is, for the lovely play and the skill and the link up with Ahmad, he needs to be scoring more, he needs to be assisting more. That's the challenge to those players. But at least, you look at Jack Clarke, there's another goal for him. Ahmad was threatening, he did have chances, didn't he? That he had one cleared off the line and stuff. So I'm not worried about the goal threat, if I'm honest.
Yeah, and you're right that we did learn a lot in like the first half of the season when Stewart and Sims was injured, and we didn't have that focal point, and he was trying different things. But I thought last night against Fulham, that wasn't the way to go. I thought it left too many players isolated with Bar pushed right up front, and Ahmad, like you said, it turned into a 4-4-2, which you're playing against a team who've got three central midfielders. That it just doesn't work. You just get overloaded. But and earlier in the season, at times it worked so well, because actually the way Pritchard was playing, Pritchard ended up being that link person who was able to kind of pick up the ball in the pockets and then bring Clarke in, bring Roberts in. When he came on from the bench, it completely changed. And the way we played completely changed. And people knew, it was almost like we clicked back in with that muscle memory that when Pritchard came on, that we remembered how to play without a striker. And the game completely changed after the substitutions.
Yeah, a few other things I want to touch on. The goals now. I talked about it at the start. I think although, Fulham's quality did shine through in the end, we didn't exactly cover ourselves in glory with the defending. I don't think, we could go through each goal one by one. I'm not going to, but, it wasn't great, was it? I mean, you would like to think that as a learning experience, there's a bit to take from it, right? I mean, the first one set the tone, didn't it? for the way that we conceded the other three. It wasn't great.
No, it wasn't. But I mean, the ball in should have been dealt with, and I think we had a couple of chances to clear it. I think Patrick Roberts actually headed it back into his own area.
Yeah.
And it was just it almost felt like panic stations as soon as the ball was in high in our box. It was just everyone panicked. Roberts, that you don't want Patrick Roberts in that position for a start, but if he's desperate to be in that position, you don't want to head of the ball the wrong way. And then The finish, he's been brilliant lately. You know, he's going off goodwill in the bank. But yeah, Patterson will be the first to hold his hands up and say he was disappointed with that one, because you could see Mark Schwartz's face at half time when they're asking another keeper about it, where he didn't want to say that he'd expect him to save it, but he kind of just said, yeah, Patterson, he'll be disappointed with that one.
His starting position was the issue in the end, because they showed a really good replay from behind the goal where he can't actually see through the crowd of players in front of him, and his feet are all wrong. And then by the time he sees the ball, it's too late, and he's sort of palmed it in. If he
got there though, I think he got there, and I think he kind of did the hard part in a sense. And I know what you mean. You're exactly right. He was slightly out of position, but when you get there, he didn't quite make the save. He wasn't kind of strong enough when he got there.
Yeah, so that was poor. And the second one, again, poor, wasn't it?
I'm trying to rack my brains what the goal was.
Can we leave this in, right? Because the reason I threw that to you is because I totally forgot about the second goal. So I thought, Chris will know. Who scored it? Second goal. Let's have a look. Andreas Pereira. See, this is how much prep we do on this pod, people. This is what happens when you try to record on the fly. But yeah, Pereira scored 59 minutes, which made it 2-0. Come on, Chris, rack your brains. You've totally forgot, haven't you?
Aye, what was that goal?
I'm enjoying this. Sean, please leave this in, please.
What was that goal? Can you remember it?
Nah, that's literally why I asked you. So
it must have been a cracker.
Come on, do you know what it is though? Before we recorded, I looked this up. So I've even been watching the goals, but there we go. Pereira scored the second goal. It mustn't have been that good. I can just remember the defending being shit.
Mitrovic and it was the one where Mitrovic kept it in and then he fell over, wasn't it?
That's the one, right? There we go.
That's the one.
It's far too late in the day for me and you. This ridiculous. So yeah. Now I remember the goal. So they broke, didn't it? And Mitrovic sprinted unchallenged half the length of the pitch. I think it was Dan Neil who was probably meant to be tracking him. Realised a couple of seconds too late that he'd forgot to track his man, and Mitrovic is involved in the goal and they score from it. Yeah, but again, poor from us.
It was a great pass into Mitrovic's feet, though, right into his path where he was making that run. It was just, we were kind of flat-footed. You know, the ball was about to go out, and Mitrovic was the only one on his toes and kept it in. And then when the ball came in, again, kind of flat-footed. Patterson beating at his near post. It was only kind of a few yards out, so you probably can't put any blame there. But yeah, flat-footed when the ball came in. The defenders were just caught on the hop when they weren't ready for Mitrovic keeping it in, and they weren't anticipating that happening. It was an easy finish in the end, but it was one of them where it was, we'll get into it, but for us to get back into it after that, because it did feel like game over at that point. And I think even I'm sure the commentator said at that point, it was like, oh, well, that's it.
It felt that way because we even made changes, like, which seemed to me like we were pretty much over the fact we'd lost the game, and we were just going to get some players off and bring some young lads on and give them a bit of no experience and get some of the more experienced players off. But yeah, we got the goal back through Clarke, and it was a really good goal. What annoyed me in all the highlights that I've seen back again today, they missed the pass from Pritchard, which was the best part of the move for me. I mean, the finish was excellent, and the pick out from Elise was brilliant, but Pritchard plays this lovely little reverse pass which plays in Elise in behind. Elise has a lot of room, to be fair, down that left-hand side, but the easy option would have been to swing it sort of across the 6-yard box, and he didn't. He held on an extra second and played it back, and it found Clarke, and it totally caught Fulham off guard, and they just didn't really know what to do. And it let him have a second which he needed to set himself, and his finish was brilliant. I mean, you could have 3 keepers on the line that wouldn't have saved it. He bends that into the top corner. Lovely, lovely goal. And that's what you want to see from Jack Clarke. Like, in the absence of Ross Stewart, in the absence of even Gelhardt in games like this, or, you know, any other situation where we have to change the way we play, he is a threat when he does stuff like that. I've seen Jack Clarke in those positions pick up the ball and run right across the face of the box and not do anything with it. There, he got that extra second that Fulham allowed him, and he got it out of his feet and he finished, and that's what he needs to be doing more of. But yeah, brilliant goal, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's it. And Pritchard coming on, I mean, we said kind of it changed the game earlier on, and one of the ways it changed the game was when Pritchard gets the ball, you see people running ahead of him because they're expecting a pass, and that was the difference. And if we're going to go forward, and obviously we've got Gellard to come back in league games, but let's say Gellard, suspensions or little nicks or whatever, if he's out for a game or two, if we do have to go back to this, that's when it becomes really important to get the runners beyond the likes of Pritchard and the likes of Ahmad Roberts, to get runners into the box. I mean, even Hume down the right hand side. I mean, he loves bombing on, which is exactly what you want, especially if you're not playing with a front man. But Elise knew that Pritchard was good enough if he made that run, even though it looked like Pritchard almost pulled it out of nowhere, the way he did that reverse pass. But Elise made the run, and that's the important thing, that Elise had the confidence that Pritchard would find him. And like you say, when I thought Elise was fantastic when he got in that position, because, as you said, the amount of players who just, I'm down the flanks, I've got the ball, I'm just going to put the ball into an area. He put his head up, saw Clarke in space, and he played him inside the box. And when you've got a player like Clarke receiving the ball like that inside the box, you've got every chance of getting a goal, because, as you said, when Clarke concentrates on taking a touch and doing something, like he did with a goal, a couple of little jinks, did a feint to go one way with his right foot, bent it in the corner. When he doesn't do too much and he's got an end product like that, it's absolutely brilliant. And 2 goals in these 2 games against Fulham should hopefully give him a load of confidence moving forward.
Yeah, and then their third, which killed the game off in the end effectively, was Kurzawa, the PSG loanee. I think he's on loan. More poor defending for me. I was probably a little bit annoyed with Patterson in this one, just because it felt like, before it even got the stage where Kurzawa gets the shot away, he's got a chance to just come out and claim it and make a nuisance of himself. And that's probably one of the common criticisms of Patterson I've got, is that, I like him, great player. He's had some really good games this season, been very important for us. But you also see that side of things, which is his inexperience. I think he's probably played, 50 or 60 games for Sunderland. So this is natural. He's a young lad. He's not going to have everything just now. But one of the big things I want to see him work on is that, just the command of his area, knowing when to clean players out, jump up with his knees out and make people know he's there, and even just dominate that 6-yard box. Don't stay glued to your line. And I just think earlier in the move there was an opportunity to do something, but I'm maybe nitpicking. But I think, to be honest, right through the game, like I said earlier, there was a theme with Fulham just being physically bigger than us, physically more dominant, and that's really where this goal came from. Was a moment where it just seems to drop because they put their bodies in the way and get a couple of knockdowns which go their way, and killed the game off.
That's it. I mean, the pressure kind of built up. You could almost see it coming, because for about a good minute or so, we just couldn't get the ball clear, and it kept going. It kept bouncing back up into the air, and we couldn't get it clear. And there was a view from behind the goal where it showed Patterson, and you could see he was kind of nervous, and he was jumping about as the ball was going up in the air, and we couldn't clear it. And then they nearly got on the end of it. And in the end, the pressure just built up and built up. By that point, I think Patterson was so kind of rooted to his line, because he smashed it in from pretty much the 6-yard line, didn't he? I thought, it might have even been closer than that, but it was pretty close in. And at the time, my first reaction was, could he have come out? Could he have just spread himself? The old kind of Schmeichel, doing all that sort of jazz. And the questions were asked. But I mean, just on the subject of Patterson, if you think he really kind of came back from loan last January, so really he's only played first team football for a calendar year. So January 2022. When he came back on loan from Notts County, got into the first team. And then, so it's been a year he's played first team football. He's 22, which is, for a goalkeeper, it's kind of the equivalent of probably an 18-year-old playing outfield. So he's got a lot to learn. And again, playing against the likes of Mitrovic and trying to win the ball off corners and stuff, and knowing where Mitrovic's elbows and that go, that it's another good lesson.
Yeah. Like I say, it's, you're talking about one of the best strikers in the Premier League at the minute. Yeah. And, if they've got that quality player to bring off the bench at half time to win them the game, then that's, it is what it is. We don't have that quality because we're in the Championship. It's just, you can't beat yourself up about it. You can't really read too much into it. We play against a team in our league like that, like we did in the second half, and we beat most teams, beat everyone, I would feel. So, nothing much to worry about. But we got a consolation goal, which was a nice moment, I felt, because I've really felt sorry for Jewi this season. I don't think he's had the opportunity some of the other players have had. I feel like when he has had opportunities, it's been when it's pointless, really. There's nothing sort of left in a game, or, like down at Shrewsbury where he started and had nobody to pick out in the box, and it was, Ross Stewart came on when he came off, and I just felt a bit sorry for him then. I feel like, out of all the young lads we brought in, he's probably suffered a little bit more in terms of his opportunities, and this was important that he got this goal because it's him showing that he can do something, he can be a threat, he has something to offer us when we don't have a striker on the pitch. And it was a lovely finish, and to be honest, that goal, I know I mentioned it before, very route one, but he only scores that because of his determination to get there and get into the right area. And then when it does drop, I mean, it's a lovely finish. It goes right into the top corner. He couldn't have got it any further. I think he probably would have hit the bar if it had been another couple of inches higher. And yeah, good goal for him, good moment, good chance for him to show Tony Mowbray what he can do. Another option, isn't it, now with Jewi? I know he's always there on the bench, but he isn't always trusted, and hopefully this is the start of a good little period for him.
Yeah, we've got, Clarke's goal in there, Rig coming on, from the bench. But honestly, for me, Bennett's goal, best moment of the night for me. I think it's brilliant. I mean, for him to get that early high at Watford, scoring that last minute goal, and he's probably thinking it's all just going to take off from here. I mean, don't get us wrong, it hasn't gone south. It's just, it hasn't taken off from there, which is probably worse because I think he was expecting all those chances in the first team. And as you said, they haven't quite come probably as he expected. But again, kind of 18 years old, and then go away for a World Cup as well in the middle of the season, which is odd for everybody. But again, for an 18-year-old to play in all of those games for Costa Rica, and then come back and then just he gets half a chance, and to do what he did, sticking right in the top corner. I thought at one point when the Fulham player was trying to head the ball on the ground, he was going to take his head off, trying to if he kicked the wrong thing when he was trying to knock it in the top corner. But absolutely brilliant, and I hope he can kind of kick on from here. But again, it's the type of opportunities he gets. We talked earlier in the season about Bennett going down the line, getting the ball in, being almost like an old-fashioned winger, and without Ross Stewart, well, it'd be interesting to see how Gellert kind of responds to that sort of service. The ball's into the box. We're not really that team, so can Bennett, adjust his game to play a bit more, come inside a bit more, things like that. It'll be interesting to see how that all pans out. But again, 18-year-old. I mean, it's easy to forget. Having watched him play the odd time, it's easy to forget he's only 18. He's come across from Costa Rica. It's his first winter in Sunderland. And I mean, I've lived away for a long time now, and it hurts me when it's painful for me when I go up in the winter. So never mind an 18-year-old lad coming across from Costa Rica. So I mean, I think he's making cracking progress, and again, it's just kind of another one that just kind of excites you when he comes off the bench.
Yeah, so we're out the cup, but that doesn't matter. The league action resumes at the weekend. We might as well quickly talk about Reading. They've not been great, let's be honest, since the turn of the year. I think their last win was the 27th of December against Swansea. They haven't won in the league since then. Drew at the weekend against Watford, 2-2 each, and have sort of slid down the table early in the season. I think the last time we played them, actually, they might have been third in the table. So since then, their season sort of not carried along the same path, which I don't think anybody really expected them to carry on winning like they were. They were one of the favourites, I think, in pre-season to maybe struggle. And I guess you could say they've probably had a good season till now, and to be sat 16th in the table or whatever it is. So, but again, this is one we've got to win. It's a home game. It's against a team who are below us in the table. It's against a team who have struggled to win games, like I say, since the turn of the year. And I think if you were going to get knocked out of the cup against Fulham, that's probably about as good as it can be in terms of you come away from the game still with a bit of confidence, having scored some goals, no major injury issues. So and it was a home game, of course, as well. So we've played at the Stadium of Light. We've still got that freshness about us. And that should hopefully give us some impetus going in this one, shouldn't it?
Yeah. And I just want to call, I'm sure it was the podcast with Adam Leventhal, but it was with speaking to someone earlier in the season doing a preview pod. And I called it then, I said Reading will fall away because their early season form was just completely bizarre. I mean, they were winning games when the stats were all wrong and all that sort of stuff, and it was only a matter of time before they started sliding down. But as you said, they haven't won since the 27th of December. I think that was when they beat Swansea 2-1. That was at home. Away, I was looking at their away form. They haven't won since the 12th of November when they beat Hull, and they've got the second worst away record in the league. So they've lost.
So,
They've lost 10
they're going to win on Saturday then.
Well, that's they've lost 10 out of 15. So they've lost 2 in every 3 away from home. But and you just mentioned that. I mean, how many times recently have I said that teams have just been there for the taking and we didn't take advantage? And it seems to be bizarrely, it seems to be these games where you think, oh, we're playing a side who are out of form and they're absolutely there for the take and all we need to do is turn up and do our stuff. But it seems to be these games where actually teams use us to get back in form, where they pick their game up. Because I think now...
Cardiff springs to mind as the one
that... Swansea were out of form as well. They hadn't won away for ages until they came to the stadium. But it's these teams where I think we've got a little bit of a reputation now for... We're not necessarily blowing sides away, but we've got a reputation for playing nice football. We're not the most physical side in the world. So I think teams like this are kind of targeting us and saying, well, if we just get right into them, stuck into them, just kick them beyond belief and give them a hard time, that's a way to get us back into form. And we seem to be a team where these teams out of form pick it up against us, like take it to the next level and do that. So everything on paper says we should be picking up 3 points this weekend, but I've said that before this season.
Yeah, same. So I'm not getting too carried away, but yeah, I do think we should win this one. Although I'm sort of slagging off their league position. They're only 4 points behind us, so a win would take them a point off us. I think it doesn't matter who you play at the minute, does it? Everybody's pretty much in the same boat, aren't they? But we win, we could be back in the playoff spots, and I think that's got to be the goal now from here. We've got no more distractions. The league is the only competition we're in. We know where we stand with regards to forwards and stuff. Yeah, we've only got one striker and he's not really an out-and-out sort of number 9, but we have, in my opinion, enough players, good attacking players, to be able to win most games in this league. And, we've got enough experience of playing without a striker to know how to deal with it. And yeah, it would be fantastic if we had Ross Stewart. We don't. We've went over this before, but we aren't going to sign a striker. We have got what we've got. It's pointless sitting chewing ourselves over it. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh God, we should have done this. We should, because them conversations have been and gone. I'm happy with what we've got, to be honest. I said this when I was on the other day with Phil. I'm quite happy with the players we've got. Would have loved another striker. We don't have another striker. And for me now, it's just about getting Gelhardt into the team and getting him scoring, and hopefully not really feeling that lack of presence from Ross Stewart necessarily, because we've now got another lad in the team who is going to be scoring goals. Getting the likes of Jack Clarke to carry on stepping it up, getting Patrick Roberts to start giving an end product and doing something too, because he needs to really start turning the screw a bit and getting some goals. And obviously he already got 2 against Reading this season, so could be back in amongst the goals in this one. But I'm still pretty happy. I'm confident we'll beat them. All I'm worried about is that you just said it there. You just touched on it there. This is a game where you fully expect Reading, being a Paul Ince team, they're going to come and just try and spoil. They're going to sit behind the ball. They know exactly what our threat is, and they're the type of team who will come and play to negate your strengths rather than play to their strengths. And their strengths might not necessarily be that, but I can imagine they're going to come here, they're going to sit behind the ball, they're going to try and time waste. They're going to do everything that we don't like. And that can be difficult when you haven't got Ross Stewart on the pitch. So Let's see.
And remember, they've got Alex Ray as well, who will know what the best ways are of winding the stadium like crowd up. He'll know, yes. From when he played there long enough, where he'll know where the atmosphere changes and all this. But I mean, I'm really looking forward to Gelhardt getting a run of games. I'm excited about seeing him play. I think everything about him sounds like once he gets a run of games going, he could get some goals, and I like the look of him. So I'm looking forward to seeing him play. Lee Hadji as well. I mean, as an attacking player, I'm looking forward to seeing him play as well. Get some. Do you think he'll be in the squad
because he hasn't been anywhere near yet? I think the touch on it didn't. They said he's probably going to need a little bit of time just to get up to speed and stuff.
But again, as just another attacking option, I'm just looking forward to him getting fit and being involved. The other thing I wanted to ask you about, because we are, I think everyone who's listened to these pods knows that we're big fans of Luke O'Nien, but since he's been out, he only got, and this is what we were talking about, players getting suspended and little niggly injuries, that, as soon as they drop out, players come in and perform well and you can't drop them. So, I think Ballard and Danny Bart are getting a really good partnership at the back. Elise's looked good down that left-hand side. Hume's almost made himself undroppable, where I know Lyndon Gooch has picked up another knock, but when he's going to struggle to get back in if Hume's still playing like this. But in terms of Luke O'Nien, does he sit on the bench and wait his turn, or do you think you play him in the middle? Do you think Michu drops out, or what would you do?
He's good. The thing is with Luke O'Nien, he finds a way onto the pitch somehow. He always does. Like even in the Fulham game, he was playing in the midfield, wasn't he? And he actually, to be honest, I actually think he done really well when he come on. We haven't even mentioned him, but I thought he just, because we'd struggled physically with the midfield battle with O'Nien on the pitch, he didn't. He got stuck in. He didn't try and overcomplicate it. He won the ball and gave it to the better players around him. And to be honest, I know a lot of people who aren't big Luke O'Nien fan, like Luke O'Nien the footballer. There's a lot of people who think he's a fantastic professional, fantastic person, but aren't really having him as a player, and I don't think they ever will, to be honest. But I said this the other week, I think he can be effective in the right situation, which the right situation against Fulham was we weren't winning the midfield battle. We just need somebody to get in there and get stuck in. He can do that for you. He's not going to sit and run the game. Is this the right game? I don't think so, because, like I said, I think Redden are going to stick 11 men behind the ball, and that's probably the game you need Michu in there, where we're going to have a lot of the ball, and it's a different. If in the second half, if they stick 11 behind the ball, like I say, but manage to get a goal from a set piece or something, like we've seen this season with other teams, and then we need to mix it up. Absolutely. I mean, I wouldn't even be opposed to putting them further forward just to win headers and stuff, because we saw that with Bart in the Fulham game. We got a little bit desperate later in the game and we put him up there to just win some headers, and it actually came off. It's not going to always come off, and you can't always play that way, but there is like I say, depend on the situation, depend on what we're after in the game. If we are chasing it or we need a goal, then you just put him wherever he's needed, really. And at the minute, the way that players are dropping with injuries, I wouldn't be surprised if he's needed earlier than we expect, just to come on and do something, because we just seem to be dropping like flies at the minute all across the pitch. Fingers crossed that's not the case, but like I say, I think Luke O'Nien just finds his way on the pitch, no matter what the situation, who we're playing, what's going on. He'll be back starting games within the next couple of weeks somehow, because there's always a place for him.
And there'll always be injuries and suspensions, like you said.
Yeah.
I mean, just what happened with, Serkin got his chance last week, and look what happened, when he came on from the bench, and players are going to pick up injuries. But again, we've got that atmosphere where if you're out through injury, even for one game, or you get suspended for one game, someone's going to come in and they're going to know that if they don't perform, that they're going to be back out the team the following week. So everyone's just coming in and knowing that they've got a level to hit. And when they do, but the likes of O'Nien, Serkin, Gooch, Pritchard to a certain extent, all these players that go out and they can't get back in again.
Yeah. Well, it's good opportunity for 3 points, good opportunity to really cement ourselves as a playoff contender. And like I say, I'm pretty confident, but could be made to eat my words, as I usually am. Cheers, Chris. Thanks for joining us, mate. Always a pleasure.
No,
thank you to the listeners. Make sure you catch all of your daily fan-written Sunderland content over on rokerreport.sbnation.com, on the socials, where Roker Report on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter. And make sure you subscribe to this pod if you aren't already, although you probably are by this point if you've listened this long into the show. And thanks. We'll be back after the game against Reading, probably with another show like this. And we'll catch you then. Cheers.